Hello and welcome to the BeeRPad. Today is all about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Joining me today, apparently it's Beer Lord and Cosmo the work from home dog, and I am not Groot. So, what's up, guys? How are you today?
I think you should be Rocket Raccoon.
I was actually going to do that, but I didn't want to get it misconstrued in a racist way. So,
All right, you
yeah.
could be Rocket Raccoon.
Aha. But no matter the case, I am not Groot.
No, you're not.
Today is a wonderful Sunday. And joining me is Beer Lord is Marcus Beer, of course, my excellent co-host, wonderful friend, and fine person. And our guest reviewer today is Paul Semel. You should always check him out at paulsemel.com. He's a veteran journalist. He has interviewed many celebrities.
He's wonderful.
He is the sequel, Wonderful 2.
Yes, Wonderful 2, Poor Tasting Coffee Boogaloo.
We were having a animated coffee discussion before we went live.
Yeah, animated coffee is awesome. It's like coffee that just walks into your mouth going.
That sounds terrifying.
Well, you're the one who brought up animated coffee.
But I don't want it dancing in my mouth and singing and making songs.
It's a party in your mouth.
Okay. So, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. There will be some spoilers in this discussion because that's how it goes. So, turn your spoiler shields on or bookmark this link and watch it after you've seen the movie.
Can't believe they killed Star-Lord, Rocket, Groot, Gamora, again.
Yes.
And Thor.
And Thor. He's so...
and Jesus.
And Jesus.
Look who it is. Haha. Hello, Mark Griffiths. Congratulations on your win. And I'm still annoyed at Newcastle for not winning today.
It was a good performance. It was a good game and a good performance from Arsenal.
They
may have blown it with their 3 draws in a row. But they are not giving up the fight. And as somebody who has been whose team has been stuck behind the sports washing juggernaut that is Man City for the last decade, I can relate to Arsenal's plight. And it's also nice that Arsenal beat another sports washing team in Newcastle United. So they can fuck off too.
Now, getting back to the movie, why don't we kick things off with your tweet-sized review of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Marcus, I will defer to you.
Okay. Well, tweet size, what's that? 40 characters, 80 characters? Is it more characters if somebody gives me a blue check mark?
Oh, wait, is it 320 now, isn't it?
I don't fucking
160?
James Gunn has proven that DC's gain is Marvel's loss. It's an excellent end to the trilogy. It borders on horror from time to time. Fantastic story. Great performances from everybody. Far and away the best Marvel movie since Endgame, without a doubt. It shows up Wakanda Forever for being the bloated mess that it was. It shows up Love and Thunder for being the pile of shit that was. And actually, it's helping me for, I'm Quantumania. I mean, I am so terrified now for Secret Wars and Kang Dynasty because the same guy who wrote Quantumania is writing this. Right. I'm hoping that the writer's strike continues for the next 30 years. This guy retires, and then we can finally have new Marvel movies because he's going to ruin the Avengers movies. But yeah, James Gunn absolutely hit a home run in what is the best Guardians movie of the trilogy.
Okay, Paul, let's hear your take. Hopefully,
a
really long tweet, but let's get an actual
320,000 characters.
That was like one of those threads where it's like /question mark.
You're replying to yourself.
Yeah. I will say it is as good as the first two, maybe even a little bit better.
Oh, okay. And I will say it is a fine swan song for James Gunn and the Guardians of the Galaxy, who appear to be done with the MCU, except for one character. Now, let's get a little bit of background first. Paul, since you rank the movies, why don't you tell me what you thought of the first two?
I the first two and this one are decidedly like in the middle for me, in the sense that I don't love them the way I love the Avengers movies and Captain America and Iron Man and Captain Marvel, but
Is
I
it because
definitely
of the characters? You're just not as attached to
no.
them?
There's two things. There's two things that for me undermined the first two movies, and one thing that undermined the first two movies, and one thing that undermined all three, and was not present in this one, which is why I think it was the best. There's always a bunch of cheesy humor in the first two, and it always made me kind of I don't want to say it made me cringe because that has implications now of something else, but it kind of did. It always made me kind of go like,
did the movie touch you someplace naughty?
yeah. And then the other thing that I don't like, which I'm sure you guys are gonna make fun of me for, is I don't like the way he uses songs in those movies.
Wow.
There's a lot of times I could sit down in those movies and go, this would work much better if he kept the musical score.
Wow.
And so that would always undermine those two movies, all three of those movies for me, really.
And Mark disagrees with you. He says, wow, thought Volume 3 was fantastic. Best Marvel film in a good while. Like Marcus said, while Volume 1 is still my favorite Guardian film and probably top 3 Marvel film. Well, I wouldn't say it's top 3 for me. I agree with you, Mark. If I had to rank them, I would go 1, 3, 2. Now, my perspective is probably a little bit different as a comics nerd. I do not like the Guardians franchise as a whole as much as some people. I do enjoy the movies. I don't like some of the choices James Gunn has made from the comics, because some of the characterizations are just so completely different from the characters I loved in the comics. And if people love the movies, totally cool with that. And I totally respect and appreciate that James Gunn did his own thing with these weird characters, but it's not the characters that I loved in the Abnett Lanning comics and the Brian Michael Bendis comics. Now that's just, I'm not saying it's worse because it's not like the comics. It's just not what I originally loved about the Guardians, like decades before the movies even came out.
Can you give us an example?
Well, Drax is the one that bothers me the most.
Okay.
First movie, he was okay, but then he just became goofier and dumber in the Avengers movies. He was toned down a bit in 3, but he was still a goofy doofus dumbass. And he's not like that at all in the comics. Yes, there is a large stage where he has brain damage, but he's not, going around laughing loudly and talking about his turds and stuff like that, like he does in the movies. So
right.
That's one example. Another one I will get to later that's specific to 3. But Marcus, what did you think of the first 2 Guardians films?
Loved one. One is still one of my all-time favorites. I think it's because I didn't have any major familiarity with the books.
Right.
And I went in with zero expectations. I obviously knew Gunn's work from the likes of Slither, which is one of my favorite horror movies of all time. So yeah, I loved number 1. I will talk about the use of music in 1 in particular. It felt like an additional character in the movie.
Absolutely.
And I think James Gunn is right up there with Edgar Wright, Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, etc., as somebody who treats the music, the soundtrack, the memories that it can evoke from us, especially from the older viewer, and treats it like a friend and a character and a core component of the movies. And I think that is the one thing that's always been a constant across those 3 movies and has been excellent every time. Because honestly, I didn't enjoy number 2 anywhere near as much. It was the least enjoyable number 2 I've ever experienced, to be honest with you. Sorry, I went Draxy for a minute. No, number 2 was good, but it just felt a little over long, and it dragged. I mean, I loved the Yondu send off at the end.
Yeah, that was lovely.
That was great, but I mean, the ego thing, despite it being the awesome Kurt Russell, I don't know. It just felt. It just didn't have the life perhaps of the first one. The first one had so much energy about it. It really did pop, and it kicked at such a great pace. Now, number 3, again, superb soundtrack. And number 3 is right up there with number 1 as one of my favorite all-time Marvel movies now. And I'll tell you why, because it's a total it's so different to the first one. It is a lot darker in a lot of ways.
Oh yeah,
Gunn really does work the script in a way that sort of like, we don't know. It's like, all right, how many times, and I'm going to ask you both of this to be totally honest now, hands up, how many times did you think, oh shit, so-and-so is going to die, but they didn't?
I was certain Drax was going to die in this movie, just kind of from the interviews Batista was doing, saying that he's totally finished with the MCU and all that.
I thought Drax was going to die. I thought Rocket was going to die. I thought Star-Lord was going to die. I mean, I thought all the Ravagers were going to die. I mean, it was great. I mean, he really did play on the emotions there and the investment that we have in the characters. And look, I understand your thoughts on Drax, but I thought Drax this time around, Drax is has been yes, he can be a buffoon because he's so incredibly literal and he says what he thinks, and that was perhaps turned into caricature in number 2 and in Avengers Endgame and Infinity War. But I think this version of Drax, it's Batista's best performance in the role. He did save his best for last, and I think the same can be said for Karen Gillan.
Amy Pond.
Amy Pond. I thought that those two really established a new heart to the series.
Right.
The Rocket backstory. I mean,
fantastic.
Yeah, it's anybody who's an animal lover cannot fail to have the emotions played like a fucking piano.
We'll touch on our favorite moments a bit later. Let's get some. Mark has posted some excellent comments here. He says Volume 1 is the most rewatchable Marvel film for me. Wow. Winter Soldier is the best Marvel film. God damn it, Paul! Turn your ringer off. No.
Sorry,
it's your mom calling to tell you off for not liking the music in God.
Yes.
It is actually my mom. Oddly enough.
Hello, Ma Semel. Come on, put her up. Put her on the podcast.
No.
Yeah.
We could ask her questions.
Who that handsome guy is on the podcast with you.
No, we're gonna be like, wait, what did you do wrong raising this man? No,
just kidding. She's worried about your Nazi coffee.
Yeah, that's a whole long conversation that we don't need to have. So,
I agree with you, Mark, that Winter Soldier is probably objectively the best, but it is. For me, it is not as rewatchable because it is so heavy. And Marcus touched on it there with Edgar Wright is the only person I can think can replace James Gunn if Marvel decide to make another Guardians film. They're very similar in the way they integrate music. Yes, Baby Driver.
Yeah, except they burned that bridge when they fired him from Ant-Man.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean,
wait. He said doubt he'd go back to Marvel after leaving.
He'd go and work for DC before he hits Marvel, and it's really a shame because anybody who watches Scott Pilgrim knows that Edgar Wright can actually do a really good comic book translation. Now, I know there are Scott Pilgrim purists who are going to go, "Oh, how dare you!" And then to them, I will say, "Fuck off." The movie's incredibly fun, with some great performances across the board, and anywhere where you've got Superman, Captain America,
Captain Marvel.
Yeah. Shit. I mean, you've got all those three in there, and I'm sure there's probably another who are at least Marvel or DC adjacent. I love that film. So yes, I'd love to see Edgar Wright handle it. And let's face it, the best thing for me about this movie was that there was no multiverse. There was no Kang. There was no there was no real touching on anything else. Thor wasn't mentioned.
Right.
It was so good, and that's why I'm now really glad that Love and Thunder came out last year, because it separated the Guardians from Thor. Because no offense to Chris Hemsworth, who I think can be a mighty fine Thor when he wants to be, but the stink of Taika Waititi, whatever his name is,
Taika
Waititi, that's it, isn't it?
Yeah,
Tonka Toy. The stink of him is all over Thor franchise right now, and I am just so over it. I thought it was absolutely the best film, and certainly the best film in 5 years.
I want to talk about two additions to this movie. One, I loved both of these characters from the comics, and never in my wildest dreams that I thought that they would ever appear in a movie. But I was really disappointed in one of the characterizations of them. Again, this is where James Gunn does his own thing, and sometimes, for me anyway, I understand that people like it, and I respect that. But for Drax, Ego is another example, and Adam Warlock, for me, the characterizations were just off and bad. I love Adam Warlock as a kid. Just check out this costume. He has like feathered Richie Sambora hair.
Dude, it's unfilmable unless you turn it into a 70s period piece.
Right, but that's not what I'm
70s Adam Warlock.
Sure, but that's not the point though. The point is the characterization. He goes on these big cosmic adventures. He's kind of detached from
But this is baby Adam Warlock, and he's basically fit. What would you rather that Adam Warlock be pulled in from the fucking multiverse again?
Adam Warlock was never a baby like Will Poulter was.
Look, I think the way they teased it at the end of Guardians 2 with with Adam being in this sort of coffin type thing as he gestates, I thought it was it really boded well. Anyway, I get your point, but if we stick to the comic book characterizations for a lot of these movies, they're gonna fall flat on their face. You can't stick with the 2D representation and the 2D characteristics.
No, I'm not talking about visually at all.
No, I'm talking about character-wise. I mean, I've read books with Adam Warlock in it. I mean, I'm not the big fan that you are, but I think that Will Poulter is a very interesting take on what is essentially a superpower, a superpowered mega god of a character that you don't really want to have him being too all-powerful. You want it's a very interesting origin story to try to tie him into the High Evolutionary. Was he underused? Yes. Does it bode that perhaps we will see him in additional Guardians movies? That would actually be very, very cool because it's something different. I mean, you look at it, every character in the MCU, they've given different spins on.
Right, but this is 180. It's still Captain America still has a lot of parallels to Captain America from the comics. Same can be said with Thor, Black Widow, whoever. This Adam Warlock in this movie was nothing like any portrayal in the comics.
Because he's not done cooking yet. And this Adam Warlock, it's not an Adam Warlock movie. It's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. And Adam Warlock is only a Guardian. Spoiler.
That's okay. We're doing spoilers.
But I'm just saying, you got to give it some time. You got to let this one gestate.
But he was never an immature baby in the comics ever.
Well, so he basically appeared fully formed and was born into the universe, fully formed, fully developed
as a man. Yes.
Yeah. That's how he was cooked, and he appeared hatched out of an egg on a mountain in a rainstorm. So yeah, I get your point, but I just think you're being a little too harsh on.
But he was never
Poulter.
immature though. On Will Poulter. No, I don't think I'm not blaming him at all. I think it was the writing, the way the character was written. I did not like at all.
You see him grow up some right there in the final reel of the film.
Yes.
In that third act, you see him grow up. And let's face it, there is no such, I mean, it's beyond our frame of comprehension to have a full-grown humanoid man with these amazing powers come out and be totally understanding of every nuance and every single aspect of humanity or other races or the universe in general or behavior. That's freaking impossible. It's beyond our comprehension for that to happen. So the way they've handled it has actually given us a look into how this character appears, evolves, and is now put on a path to greatness, as opposed to Adam Warlock come out of nowhere. Where do you come from? Well, I was hatched out of a giant egg, just like this yesterday, and I know I'm all powerful and I know absolutely everything. Where's the character journey? Evolution, the evolutionary journey. Where is that? If you have a character like that, it makes for a boring movie, my friend.
I completely disagree with you. He's supposed to be.
Wrong. I'm telling you,
I am not wrong.
You're wrong.
You never read the comics. So, Paul, what did you think of Adam Warlock in this movie?
I don't care. No, I get your point, both of you. I feel like they probably did it this way because they're setting something up.
Are they? For what? There are no Guardians movies planned.
Yeah, but there are other movies planned.
Sure.
We do need to talk about Secret Wars because that's going to tie up a lot of things.
Is it? Because, I mean, in the comics, Adam Warlock was a key part in the Infinity War. So obviously they didn't use him for that.
Yeah, but they've got 2 Avengers movies coming up at some point, and who knows what else. I do think that he was sort of underused, like borderline of MacGuffin in a weird way. But I don't have the emotional attachment to those characters, either him or the High Evolutionary that you do, Raymond. So the characterization didn't bug me. I did really like, there was one line that the High Evolutionary had that I thought was really, really good, where somebody says something like, "Oh God," or whatever, and he's like, "There is no God. That's why I had to step up." And I was like,
that was fantastic.
Wow.
And the delivery of that.
Yeah,
awesome.
I'm not going to bother trying to pronounce that guy's name because it's
Chukwudi Iwuji.
Okay.
Although in interviews they let interviewers call him Chuck, so let's use Chuck.
Well, Chuck is a very good actor.
Loved him in Peacemaker. Thought he was fantastic.
Very good in this role, and
And let's talk about weirdo costumes from the comics. Look at this. Like that's fantastic. It's so weird.
It looks like Colossus with a toga.
Yeah, he's like malnourished Colossus or something with a loincloth. But here's an interesting take. I do believe that Chuck is a fine actor. People have speculated, and this was in a lot of the trade magazines, that because of Jonathan Majors' issues, let's refer to them as that they're going to rewrite High Evolutionary as a Kang variant and possibly have him take over if Jonathan Majors is not available to star in those Avengers movies. And of course, Jonathan Winters is dead, so he can't replace him either. That would have been my first choice.
I've read those same ones, and I wouldn't have a problem with that. Jonathan Majors he's an undoubtedly fine actor.
Oh yeah,
and he's proven that in everything he's been in. But we can't discount the victims that have come through, more than one.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, as it looks more and more as if that he is he's a serial abuser, which is horrible to say.
Yeah.
But I do find it ridiculous that Jonathan Majors is rightly being castigated and is likely to lose his career over this, and Ezra Miller is not. Because what Ezra Miller has done.
What's the difference there?
There's only different. The only difference is it's the melanin test. Yes, it's it's the 50 Shades of Superhero actors. And I just find it quite ridiculous. And I know Warner Brothers and DC are like, oh, The Flash is going to be the best movie of the year and best superhero movie. And it looks really good. It does look really good. And I want to see it because I want to see Superwoman, Supergirl, whatever she's called. I want to see Keaton back as Batman.
Yeah.
But I don't want this movie to be successful because of Ezra Miller. I think he should be, he's off getting help. Great. But it doesn't mean he shouldn't answer for his crimes. And
yes.
he should be punished for his crimes. And it looks like he's gotten away with them. And is that because, they, I did not mean to misgender. They have gotten away with their crimes. And I think they should pay for their crimes, as it seems Jonathan Majors is. So, but yes, I could see the High Evolutionary being a variant of Kang. It would be very interesting to see how quickly they could reshoot, especially as we know Kang is going to be in Loki season 2, which is coming. They can't reshoot that now because there's a writer's strike.
Right.
Unless they were already planning to do it. So there is a whole world of mess that Marvel should have acted upon the second this story broke and put a contingency in place.
They could shoot it. They just have no script because nobody is available to.
Well, I suppose they could reshoot the existing script.
That's true.
Yeah, true. Perhaps. But yes, it's going to be very interesting. And I think Chuck was fantastic as the High Evolutionary.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with him in the comic books because I think you and I have probably read a lot of different books over the years.
Yeah. Sure.
So I don't really have a comment there, but I think he is certainly the one of the best villains that we've had. A properly fleshed out 3D villain. Since we went on that run of having Killmonger and Hela, and then and even Thanos.
It's interesting that you say that because I also thought he was a fantastic villain, but our friend and colleague Ray Carcillo was saying that he found him to be one note. And I'm sorry you're not here to defend yourself, Ray, but I really disagree with you there. I thought he was great.
Well, there's a lot of things that I don't take Ray's word on, so I don't give a shit.
Ouchie.
Yeah, sorry.
I want to confess it took me a while to learn how to pronounce Chukwudi Iwuji. So for a while I was calling him Chuck Wagon Emoji for short.
Wow. All right, Ray Padilla.
Hey,
Ray Padalulu.
Mark says John David Washington is the new Kang. Fingers crossed.
Well, it could be. They could take almost anybody as a variant of Kang and make them the new Kang. But obviously, we got to this by bringing Kang in. Right. My point earlier was about Secret Wars.
Right.
Secret Wars is not going to be the book that I grew up reading in the 80s or the book that was reissued or redone in the early 2000s. They did another version of it.
And they did it poorly.
Yes, it's not as good as the original. But the original with the Beyonder and Battle World, for me, was just it was my first experience of a huge comic book crossover event. And I just freaking loved it. And to take that to a multiversal level is where we will probably see the likes of Star-Lord pulled back in, as in Chris Pratt Star-Lord, as in there'll probably be a section of wherever he's living right now yanked out and creating the new battle world as it was in the original books. But I also think this is where we're going to see Fantastic Four.
Yes.
We're going to see X-Men. We're going to see a bunch of new characters introduced who are not going to have any backstory whatsoever. This is where we'll probably see the Guardians again.
I don't think so. Star-Lord,
no,
yes. I don't.
No, I mean, I'm talking about the Guardians as in that final end credit scene. Those Guardians. I'm not talking about Gamora.
Right.
I'm not talking about Mantis. But
from what I understand, I don't think those guys are signed for multi-film. I mean, of course, that can change later.
Well, I think Poulter's signed. I mean, Vin Diesel's not going to turn down that sort of work. It will be interesting. I mean, Karen Gillan hasn't said that she's done with the MCU. The only two who have said they are done are Batista and Zoe Saldana. They're the only two who are walking away. So we could actually expect to see other members of Guardians of the Galaxy turn up. And I think Secret Wars will probably end up being a two-parter that we will see a lot of new characters put in.
Right.
If it's half as good as Infinity War, we're in for a treat.
Well, in a way, it's like, DC is using Flashpoint as their big reset to make a clean slate for James Gunn. Secret Wars is going to be used as a reset because, actors age out, of course.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about some of your favorite performances in Guardians 3, Paul Semel. Who did you enjoy?
The two that stood out for me were Cosmo, who I thought was really funny.
Yeah.
She's a bad dog, though.
Yeah, that whole thing was really, really funny. And I've seen that joke told before, like similar jokes told before about dogs being really offended that they were called a bad dog. I think they did that on like Family Guy once with Brian, but it was still funny. And then the other one was Mantis, who I've always liked as a character, and I always found very, very entertaining. And I thought that she was really good in this one as well. Those were the two. I mean, like you guys said, like everybody's really good in this, but they were really good in the same way they've been really good before. So
right,
nobody really sort of, except for those two, nobody kind of jumped out at me being particularly like terrible or particularly great.
So
above board.
Mark says, side note, I love Mantis's actress. She is very Mantis-y in interviews. Yes, she is wonderful. And wonderful to look at as well. Very charming. Now, Paul, you brought up Cosmo, who is voiced by Maria Bakalova,
right?
Who we know from the Borat subsequent movie film.
Yeah.
So
I'm waiting for all the fake nerds to pretend that they're angry that Cosmo is a girl and not a boy, like he is in the books.
But when I hear her voice, I think of Rudy Giuliani zipping his pants. Like, is Rudy going to try to get with Cosmo? Now, for my favorite performances, I really like the evolution of Nebula, who is just a very angry woman in the first film, and through the second film and the Avengers movies, she's come to accept and love the Guardians as her family. And I absolutely love that. And of course, as Marcus was talking about earlier, the stuff with Rocket, flashbacks and current, I thought was phenomenal. Like that, I wasn't ready for that level of heaviness. And I think young Rocket was played by Sean Gunn, voiced by Sean Gunn, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, Rocket and Nebula for me were the standouts. Marcus, who did you enjoy?
Yeah, I think I'll agree with you on that. I mean, you could say Rocket, you could say Nebula, you could say Mantis and Groot. I mean, not Groot, sorry, Drax. All those characters had probably their strongest showings compared to any of the previous output, whether it be Guardians or Avengers or whatever, Thor movies, whatever. I thought they all did very, very well. And again, Chuck as the High Evolutionary was fantastic.
Yeah.
Chilling. I mean, I have unfortunately been in a room with doctors with that level of God complex. And it's fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
They just don't look at you as a person. They look at you as an experiment. So yeah, I think and look, I know you had problems with Will Poulter's, with the characterization of Adam Warlock, but I thought Will Poulter started off more as comic relief, and then you could feel that he was like a kid, especially when he was talking about his mum.
Yes.
But I think later on, when he was saved, it's like, why are you doing that? And then you could see the light bulb go off, and that character just moved up a level. And I think I do like Will Poulter as an actor. He's done some tremendous stuff over the years. I'm always a big fan of British superheroes, and I think that's probably the reason you're irked that Adam Warlock doesn't have an American accent. But
he's not American, though. To me, in my head, he's not American either.
The actor isn't American either.
Yes.
Well, no, I'm saying, for example, Thanos wasn't American, but he's got an American accent because the actor's American. I mean, these extraterrestrial off-worlders. I mean,
right.
But I do, I thought his performance was good. Cosmo was great. I mean, anybody who's a dog lover will fall in love with Cosmo, and I predict a slew of puppies that are being adopted over the next 3 to 6 months, all to be called Cosmo. And then the performances of Rocket's friends in captivity.
Yeah.
The otter and the walrus and the bunny. And I mean, it was so visually striking.
Wasn't Lila Hawkeye's wife?
Yes. Linda Cardellini.
Yes. Wonderful.
But yeah, they were all superb. I mean, they were all they all looked like they belonged in a Guillermo del Toro movie.
Right.
But to have those lovable, sincere character performances come out of that grotesquerie, and it just shows, I mean, anybody who's repulsed by that should be, very aware of medical experiments and vivisection on animals in the name, by the cosmetics companies and a lot of other companies.
Oh yeah.
And how we as a species have treated animals over the years. And it's just the way we as a species treat them, any animal. And it goes on not just with the cute ones, but with, chickens, cows, pigs, all farm animals. I mean, it really is quite repugnant what we do. And it should give a lot of people pause for thought. They should really think on it. And I think from that perspective as well, I think it was not the movie I was expecting. I hadn't realized that, we wouldn't see that much of Rocket as Rocket or the current Guardians in a lot of ways, but we delve back.
Right.
And the way they fleshed out the High Evolutionary in that way was superb. I mean, I want to go see this film again, and I haven't said that about a Marvel movie since Endgame.
Mark says, wasn't a standout performance, but I was buzzing to properly see Nathan Fillion in the MCU. That was
and he lasted a little bit longer than he did in Suicide Squad. Yeah, I mean, I forgot that Nathan Fillion was in this, but yeah, he was. I mean, again, he was. He was Nathan Fillion doing Nathan Fillion, and
yes,
and more power to him. I mean, he will never get his Uncharted movie, so he's got to take what he can get.
And speaking of Suicide Squad, we had another James Gunn Suicide Squad appearance with Daniela Melchior, who played the pink girl that Star-Lord was flirting with. She is, of course, Ratcatcher from Suicide Squad. Love that woman.
I was excited to see her. I also was excited to see the guy from Crazy Rich Asians.
High
Evolutionaries. He didn't have a lot to do, but I like that guy in Crazy Rich Asians, and he's a fun guy. Nico Santos.
He's one of my father's people. So congrats to him.
Yeah. So that was fun.
Gunn nails the casting. I mean, he gets actors who can just turn out what he needs, whether they be character actors or even the cameos. I mean, they do pull out these amazing performers, and it just goes to show how good and how underrated. Could you imagine this movie without Gunn writing and directing? Could you imagine if that fucking bell-end Perlmutter was still in charge of Marvel and hadn't backed down, been forced to back down and rehire James Gunn? I mean, I'm so glad that knob's gone.
Same.
And I hope that we can move forward and see a better Marvel moving forward, because Gunn came out and said he tweeted stuff when he was a lot more immature. I mean, if you don't grow up in a 10-year period, I mean, and look, I've changed. I've changed in the last 4 or 5 years, I think. I mean, yes, I'm still a grumpy old arsehole in a lot of ways, but that's what people love about me, But still, I mean, if we are not evolving, especially as we get older, then our life is a fucking waste.
Yes, completely agree.
So yes, the way they treated James Gunn was quite ridiculous, and I'm glad he came back. I'm glad he got to finish off his trilogy on his terms, and he really did push the envelope in a lot of ways. And as like I said, I think it's probably some of his finest work to date.
And hats off to him for even coming back. Some people wouldn't after being treated that way, or they would have came back and phoned it in. But he put the full effort into this, and we got a great movie out of it.
Yeah.
Now, just on a side note, as much as I love Will Poulter, he will always be the kid that had his balls bitten by a tarantula in We're the Millers. So that for me is his crowning moment. I love that scene. It's just a great scene. And he's one of those English guys that does a fantastic American accent, but for some reason it doesn't work as well the other way. Like there's a lot of, I guess it starts with Dick Van Dyke and doing that accent, and maybe it's gotten better with
there are a lot of, well, that's because a lot of Americans don't seem to realize that much, like America, there are regional dialects.
Yes.
And I mean, the only one I've seen try to really do one is actually Robert Downey Jr., where he had his Sherlock sort of like slightly upper crust one,
right?
And then he absolutely murdered the Welsh accent for Dr. Dolittle, because he said he'd heard that he'd been filming Age of Ultron, and there were some Welsh cast member or crew members on the set, or he's working on a movie with the Welsh crew members, and he loved the accent so much that he decided to do that accent for Doolittle, and it's fucking awful.
Speaking
it really is
of accents, in the comics, High Evolutionary is actually from Manchester. So now picture like a Jamie Tart kind of accent.
Kid. Now I'm the High Evolutionary. I'm gonna go now. I'm gonna listen to some Oasis, do a little bit of the puff, and then I'm gonna chop up a bunny.
Now, we talked about our favorite performances. Let's talk about our favorite scenes or moments. The one that a lot of people are talking about is Groot saying other words besides "I am not Groot."
That actually felt a little lame to me.
Well, no, what people have explained is he didn't actually say that. What he said was, "I am Groot."
And we are hearing.
But the idea is that we can finally
understand him now. That's fantastic. Either way,
if that was the case, it would have been really nice for him to sort of like quote Shakespeare or something, then, or put something really.
Groot, find this whole situation unsatisfying.
Shall I compare thee all to a summer's day?
There's probably an outtake though of Vin Diesel saying, "It's all about family."
Yes. Or Hogarth. He's gotten a lot of mileage out of saying "I am Groot" and saying Hogarth. So
yeah,
he will always guardians, be countrymen. Lend me your ears.
I live my life one branch at a time.
Let's make like a dream bark.
They should totally do that. They should totally like get him to come in and do all kinds of weird ass.
I'm sure he probably did in the VO booth. He just was bored or goofing around.
Yeah.
Another one of my favorite scenes is the one Paul brought up. If you can do the High Evolutionary's line again, where he is saying,
someone says, "Oh my God," or something, and he goes, "There is no God. That's why I had to step up."
Yeah, it was a great line.
Yeah, that was a good part.
That's
I liked all the scenes with the little animal friends, like the spider bunny.
Yeah.
And those were really good scenes.
They were heart wrenching. They really were. And that I will say that when they all get killed in the gunfire,
that was heavy. It was not.
That
ready
was
for that.
like, oh, that was the heart. That I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I can take this.
Yeah.
That was extremely powerful, well written and well performed. And Sean Gunn deserves huge kudos for the way he handled young Rocket. There's a scene between Mantis and Drax and Nebula, where they're talking. They're actually talking and calling Drax stupid.
Yes.
And the interplay between those three characters, I think Star-Lord's there as well. But the interplay between those characters just cements how they've all grown in this, in the series, and how this is their best movie by a long chalk. But I mean, you could see the look of hurt on Drax's face.
Yes.
And I thought that was quite beautiful. And the whole thing about Nebula growing as well. She had some really powerful scenes. And I just think, towards the end there, that goodbye scene, but the final, that final scene where they're together and, they're for the last time.
Yeah.
That was immensely powerful. There have obviously been other movies that have come, the trilogy's come to an end, and I haven't really felt anything, but this time you could actually feel that it was, a family, and they were splitting up and going their own separate ways. And again, best performances of the series, some of the best script writing. Visually, it was just, I mean, again, the combat scenes in the High Evolutionary ship, that one combat scene where they break the door open after being on, and they're literally, the entire Guardians are all there, and they're shooting and they're chopping, and that was pure visual gorgeousness. I loved the cinematography there. I have really no quibbles.
Mark says he really enjoyed the car scene. That was also a great scene. I loved that company that does the High Evolutionary experiments. I loved how it was a mix of like this wacky, organic, fleshy walls and stuff, but also inside it might as well look like Facebook's office, where it's all clean and high tech. Just the juxtaposition of that, I thought, fantastic set piece.
And the Skittles spacesuits.
What's that game called? Where one of them is the spy. It was an homage to that.
Oh, Among Us.
Among Us, yes.
Yeah.
I thought that was great. Now, of course, Paul disagrees, but Marcus and I both love the way James Gunn uses music. Not just in the Guardians movies. I thought the music in Peacemaker was fantastic as well. Did you have a favorite song from the Guardians 3 soundtrack? Now, I'll go first because this one's easy for me. It's Heart's Crazy for You, which is one of my favorite songs in general. I play guitar very poorly, but the guitar riffs in Crazy for You are fantastic. Heart is actually the first concert I went to without my parents as a teenager. So there's a special place in my heart for Heart. Now, how about you guys? What songs did you like? What would you pick as your favorite song from Volume 3?
Well, there are a few. I've got the set list here, and actually, as I'm reading that set list, I mean, it starts off so powerfully with Creep.
Yeah. Acoustic Creep is great.
You see this, especially Rocket, and this is where you begin to realize that this is Rocket's story.
Mm-hmm.
That it's him walking around listening to this song. But Heart, Crazy on You, great. Since You've Been Gone, Rainbow, classic.
Yeah. Alice Cooper.
We Care a Lot. That's always a great one for me. No Sleep Till Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Because they teased that a few times. They teased it and teased it and teased it. And then boom, they dropped it and did it really, really well. But I'm actually going to go for two. And one of them is Florence and the Machine, Dog Days Are Over. Because it's the aftermath scene. And the music's on there. And everybody is like, just recovering, and then this music comes on, this phenomenally uplifting song that's very powerful and very well scored, and people start dancing, and you start to see it's just such a great little scene for me. There's that one, and then there's obviously the way they round it off at the very end with Come On and Get Your Love.
Yes,
from the very first movie.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a great bit of symmetry. So yeah, there's a fantastic
great
soundtrack. Yeah.
Now, before we get to Paul's pick, Mark says, Heart, what a band. Ann Wilson has one of the greatest voices of all time. Completely agree. That woman's pipes are phenomenal. Now, Paul, even though you don't like the music, the soundtrack as much as we do, did you have a favorite song?
The one of the few times that I thought it really worked well, Mark, was when Marcus just mentioned, and I didn't even know what the song was. I guess you said it's Florence and the Machine, was where Rocket is playing with his Zune and puts the song on the speakers and everybody just sort of organically starts to dance. Like that to me was a really fun scene. And I don't know what that song is. I never heard the song. It's not a song I'd particularly be into, but it worked. That was its time. I thought the song worked really well for that scene, where I could see a lot of other songs, not working as well. Like if he'd somehow put on like an EDM track or
right.
something else, or the Beastie Boys track. Like I don't think the Beastie Boys track would have worked in that scene.
Right. That's not exactly dance music.
Right. Yeah. Are
you familiar with Florence and the Machine?
I know of them, but it's not my kind of
right.
thing.
That's Florence Henderson's old band from the Brady Bunch.
Yes, I've heard.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah.
It's like her and Rage Against and the bass player from Rage Against the Machine, yes. I guess. And
it's a crossover.
Actually, they were originally called Florence and the Hendersons, but there was a crossover with that giant Sasquatch from Harry and the Hendersons.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, look, I think that James Gunn used the Beastie Boys way better than Beastie Boys was used in that abysmal third Star Trek. They used Sabotage.
Yeah, but that was also a callback from the.
But it was still a horrible way to use it. And so I think Gunn has done very, very well with his music cues.
Marcus, you mentioned before you liked the music in 1 and 3. Did you not like it as much in 2, or?
It was still great, but it just wasn't. The whole movie for me didn't pop.
I agree.
It wasn't the high of the first or the third movie. It's a perfectly cromulent movie, if you will. But it doesn't even crack my top 10 of Marvel movies.
Right, but as a whole aside, I still thought the music choices were fantastic, especially Cat Stevens. I thought that scene was fantastic.
Yes, there's a lot to be said for Cat Stevens / Yusuf Islam, and his amazing songs. My point being that when the movie works, the songs are elevated. And when the movie doesn't work quite as much for me, even the songs don't quite stand out as much.
Gotcha.
Whereas, I have rewatched Guardians 1 umpteen times, so many times. It's a feel-good romp that I will put on, and I love the music. And I even loved when they pastiched it in Endgame, when Star-Lord's is singing, "Hey, what's the matter?" And he's singing, but he's singing badly out of tune because they actually take it from the perspective of the two characters watching him and going, "What the fuck is he doing?"
Yeah, it's Rhodey and Nebula watching him, hearing
and I
his
think
actual voice. Yeah,
that was brilliant. And so I'm sure. I think it's one of those films that just hasn't, and two hasn't really doesn't really register much with me. I know the story. I've watched it 2 or 3 times, but it still just doesn't vibe, and the music doesn't pop because of it. But I'm sure it's excellent.
Fair enough. Now, Mark says or asks, any of you played the Guardians of the Galaxy game? I know Marcus has opinions, and I've tried to convince him to play it in the past. I wasn't expecting much, but it's genuinely great and better than it has any right to be. Now, yeah, I think a lot of people were expecting it to be of the same quality as the Avengers game that preceded it, but this is much better.
Paul, I have played it. This might be a shocker for you, Mark Griffiths, but I have actually played it. And yes, is it better than Avengers? Yes. Have I taken shits that are better than Avengers? Yes.
He's being Drax again.
Does it have the same flaws as Avengers? Unfortunately, yes, because it's part of this adherence to this engine that I don't think is suited to a free-flowing combat, superhero movie or superhero game. I think the voice acting is nowhere near as good as it should be, much like Avengers. I do feel that
it's definitely a shock, Marcus.
No, it was on Games Pass. So I played it, downloaded and played it.
I think it's free on PlayStation Network as well for those subscribers. If you want to check it out,
it's not as bad as Avengers, but it's still not a good game. But that's down more to Square Enix and how they mismanaged the Marvel license, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, there's a reason that Square Enix sold off Crystal Dynamics. It's because they mismanaged that studio so much.
Right.
And in turn, mismanaged. Well, it's the fucking Tomb Raider engine. And that Tomb Raider engine worked with the first Tomb Raider game. But it's just not a good engine. It's not a good engine. It's just the same shit over and over. And it just takes you out of the game to have these things where you slide through gaps in a door or a rock or slide, and it's I have the same problem with God of War, to be honest with you. Okay. And it's just my personal opinion, not gospel by any stretch of the imagination. And Paul has just put headphones on because he's so done with me talking.
My headphones have been on the same time the whole time.
Did you like the game, Paul?
I liked the game a lot, actually. I had a lot of fun with it. I played it twice. I don't hate the Avengers game nearly as much as everybody else did. I don't think it's a good game by any stretch of the imagination, but I had fun with it.
Well, I had fun with it because I'm just such a mark for Ms. Marvel, so I love that she was the POV character.
Yeah.
Look, Miss Marvel in Avengers was great. Some of the best writing. Loved it. Loved the performance of that character. The actress playing that character. Had it been a Miss Marvel game, it'd probably been way more entertaining than saddling her as, people. If you're going to sell an Avengers game, make it about the Avengers from the get-go. Or make it Miss Marvel featuring the Avengers. It's like saying Iron Man 2 is a Black Widow movie.
Right. Mark says, one of my most controversial opinions, I'm going to get some heat for this, I prefer it to Spider-Man. Whoa, that is bold, my friend.
Enough. Where's the block button? Where's the block button?
I'm going to defend Mark in this because he said, in terms of the story, he didn't say anything about the action. I'm not saying I agree with him, but I can understand
that is
why somebody could like the story better than they like the story in Spider-Man. Again, I don't agree.
But I understand.
Action in terms of the gameplay.
No, I think we should ban him. Ban him. Burn a mistake. Look, no, everybody's allowed to have their opinions, and if he enjoys it, great. I'm trying to think of I think Batman Arkham Asylum is still probably my favorite superhero game. Because I think there was the perfect Batman game.
It's not Superman 64 where you're flying through hoops for some unknown reason.
Oh, God.
Those intergalactic hoops.
Wow. I still have nightmares about that game. That just Oh. Now, getting back to Square Enix for a second, I think one of the problems they had is that, so many people are familiar with the MCU movies, but that is not the license that Square Enix had. They had the comic book license. So when they were using those characters portrayed that way, some people are like, well, who the fuck are these people? Why are they being like this when I know this from the movies? So I think that kind of hurt them, and they didn't quite make that clear or establish that.
But I mean, outside of
that was going to hurt them no matter what. There was nothing they could have done. There was no way you could put out that game
without at least sound alikes. If you can't get the Marvel cast, you get the sound alikes. You don't go for the Troy Bakers or whoever the supposed AAA stars of game voiceover. You go for almost like the Marvel animation version. You go to those actors and say, we want you to sound like Chris Hemsworth and we want you to sound like Robert Downey Jr. Can
you guys do that? Can one of you do an Australian act? Can you do Thor right now?
No, but I'll tell you an interesting story from when we were doing Scarface at Vivendi and we couldn't get Al Pacino to play Tony Montana. The guy we got was, I think, Al Pacino's driver for the very longest time, who did a passable impression of him as Tony Montana. So obviously Scarface The World Is Yours is a video game that you can't actually find anymore because it's in licensing hell, but it came out in the original Xbox back in the day. But it was a Grand Theft Auto-esque kind of game, GTA 3, and was famous for the balls meter, where your balls would go, you'd have a ball, you'd have balls on the bottom of the screen. They were, as you played, they would fill up, and then you get this rage power, if you will. And also had a banging soundtrack that really caught that summed up the era. I think it was an underrated game myself. It just took too long to
was. I remember that. What was the subtitle for that game? It was Scarface something.
The World Is Yours.
World Is Yours. Yeah. So that game, I actually shot my pilot for my Yahoo show, and we did a bit under the poster. Zoe and I did a bit under the poster there, where I was saying lines from Taxi Driver instead of Scarface, and she's like, "That's the wrong movie, you idiot." So that was a fun bit.
Mark, I didn't work on Scarface. My good friend Matt Ferrari was the PR guy on that because I was working on Fear at the time.
Aha.
He had the bigger budget. I had the better game.
Yes, he did.
You fill your testosterone and sell your sperm when you're. Can you do that in 2023? Would that fly in today's?
Not if you got prostate cancer.
Fair enough.
Well, no, now, the treatment for prostate cancer cuts off your testosterone.
It cuts your
yeah, and there's no white lines from me. Thank you very much.
Suddenly, those kind back into lines. The bunny scene.
Uncomfortable.
Now let's talk a big picture for the MCU and discuss how will James Gunn's departure affect the MCU. I think they're worse for it. It's DC's gain and Marvel's loss, and I think it's a great gain for DC and a tremendous loss for Marvel. And I think it takes a lot of the originality and fun out of the MCU, and especially at a time where people don't seem to be enjoying the movies as much. Some people, like Marcus, says there could be overload. There's too much content now, so they really need a creator like James Gunn to make things that stand out and are singular. And I'm sure they can find somebody else, but maybe they won't. What do you guys think? Let's start with you, Marcus.
I don't agree.
Paul. You don't agree?
I don't agree because he wasn't going to do anything else.
Okay.
Even if he never had that issue, with the tweets and got fired and then got rehired, I don't think he was going to do anything else. Like it's not like he was going to direct the Avengers movies. It's not like he was going to direct like Captain America or Blade or anything like that. So I don't think that he was. I mean, eventually they might have come back to him with something, and he might have come in, but I don't really think he would have. I think he would have just been like, no, I'm okay.
But I think he could have done something with lesser known characters like the Guardians and do something interesting and creative with them.
Maybe, but I also don't see his ties with Marvel as being so absolutely cut.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I
Well-
think they came back to him in
Well, it's 10 years. We're talking about a 10-year contract. I think he's got. Isn't
Yeah.
to oversee for the next decade at DC. That's pretty much the ties may not be cut, but they're certainly strained.
Yeah.
It's a long piece of string, my friend.
Yeah, but they've already got plans for that long anyway. So like if they were gonna have him, like let's say they were gonna have James Gunn do the Thunderbolts, which I know they're doing, but let's say for the sake of argument they're gonna have him do the Thunderbolts thing. That wasn't gonna be for a while. That wouldn't be, or whatever it is that, some obscure, West Coast Avengers, let's say.
The Great Lakes Avengers. Remember those guys?
Yeah. Or the Squirrel Girl movie, like.
I would love a Squirrel Girl movie.
Yeah, but if they were gonna have him do a Squirrel Girl movie, they weren't gonna have him do it anytime soon. So I don't see this as that big of a deal.
Too bad.
I think both of your points are well made, and I agree with both of you in different ways. Do I think it's a loss that there is a creative spark now no longer working at Marvel? Admittedly, he was for hire. He wasn't internal Marvel. Yes, I do. I do think it's a great loss to lose a director and writer of his skill set who can actually bring joy to a story and a trilogy. It's a huge coup for DC, and the way they're handling it is very, very smart in that they've got somebody who is overseeing the business side, and you've got Gunn on the creative side, because that's his speciality. And I think Marvel might have been smarter, perhaps hiring somebody like him to come in and work with Kevin Feige.
Right.
Because let's face it, Feige's output since Endgame has not been good between TV and movies. The stuff has been up and down like a tart Snickers.
I disagree on TV. I think the TV has been pretty great.
The TV has not been consistently good. I mean, I know you have your favorites there. For example, I mean, Loki, very good. We had Miss Marvel. That was a very good too. WandaVision, enjoyable, up and down. Falcon and the Winter Soldier, kind of dull.
I agree with you there.
On the rewatch of She-Hulk, not as good as it was on the first watch. That first buzz where you're like, oh, I'm excited for this, and I watched it, and it's great. Oh, you watch the second time, you're like, all right, I'm going to skip through this now.
I still enjoy it. Everything except Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I will rewatch.
But I mean, again, fine if you say it's great on the TV side. You look at the movie side, and the movie side has been mediocre in very, very large swaths since Endgame.
I agree. I mean, you don't like Shang-Chi as much as I think Paul likes it.
Yeah,
too.
I like that movie.
So
look, I rewatched Shang-Chi 2 weeks ago, and it's still an enjoyable-ish movie with a badly underwritten lead character. And I will still maintain that the two allegedly supporting female characters are more interesting than Shang-Chi, and it's nothing to do with the actor. I think it's more to do with the writing, in my humble opinion.
I agree to an extent, but also it's hard to. Awkwafina is so good at stealing spotlight. Must be challenging to act with her.
She's great in Renfield. I just watched her in Renfield. She was really good in that. And yes, she does. She does have a way of stealing scenes, etc., etc. But you look at Black Widow, you look at Eternals, you look at Doctor Strange, you look. I mean, the list goes on, and they have not been great movies. They've not been. Perhaps it's impossible to reach after you've had the orgasmic bliss that is Infinity War and Endgame. Cuddle time after it is not quite as good, and this is cuddle time and Who Sleeps in the Wet Spot. And now hopefully that's ended with this one, because we this is a great movie, and now we've got Marvels coming up at the end of the year, which the trailer is very enticing, and it's giving me hope. And I did enjoy Captain Marvel. I really did enjoy Captain Marvel. Brie Larson, I'm hoping to see some range from her though, because she does seem to play Captain Marvel as kind of like
she's like badass angry girl. Like,
it was kind of like a blank slate. It's so impossible. There's not much emotional range there with her. And we know she's a damn fine actress because she's got an Academy Award to prove it. So I'm really looking forward to seeing Kamala Khan on the big screen. I'm looking forward to seeing just seeing this movie in general, and hopefully, like I said, Guardians is the start of something really, really cool. Another upward spiral after the absolute pit that was Ant-Man and Quantumania.
Now, Paul, I want to get to your opinion next, but I wanted to ask Marcus a question. You brought up the word skill set, which I thought was really interesting. And I think one of Kevin Feige's greatest gifts is how he's able to organize a story throughout a series, a universe of movies. And I don't know that James Gunn does that. He's wonderful as a creative, but in terms of organizing an entire DC universe, maybe that's not his strong suit. So
perhaps that's not what we're going to get. We know we're getting a new Superman. We know there's a Batman that's outside of his purview. We know that there's a Joker that's outside of his purview. So, but you look how he connected his Suicide Squad to Peacemaker.
Right.
That worked really well. And let's face it, Suicide Squad, one of the best DC movies for a long time. They followed that up with the Batman, which was also really, really quite excellent in my opinion. Peacemaker was a fantastic series.
But see, the thing with both of those, it's you have more freedom with lesser known characters like Peacemaker and the Suicide Squad. So when he's doing Superman and eventually, let's say he has another Flash movie or the big guys like
he doesn't have to direct every single one. He's not going to write and direct every single one.
But he's in charge of connecting it all together. Like he's the overseer essentially. He's their Feige.
He can do a really good job because he's not having to focus on the business side. He can look at it from a purely story aesthetic. And given everything he's gone through with Marvel and seeing how they have done stuff, I think he knows, has got a great idea of what not to do in a lot of ways. Unfortunately, we've got to contend with the current chairman of Warner Brothers Discovery.
Oh, that guy sucks.
Zaslav, I think his name is. Who shelved the Batgirl movie.
So angry about that.
And is kind of terrifying. So I hope their deal is for as much autonomy as they can get, because I think that the Gunn and his producing partner could actually do some really cool stuff. Superman Reborn is something, or whatever it's, his script is called. I look forward to seeing it because it's James Gunn. We know Peacemaker's getting a second season. We know the Penguin's getting a spin-off. That's going to be hopefully pretty good. Colin Farrell's fantastic there.
Yeah.
In fact, there's only one part of the DC movie thing that I'm not interested in, and that's Joker Folie à Deux. I have no interest in seeing that movie in any way, shape, or form, especially as we don't need another Harley Quinn. No matter how cool Lady Gaga is, she's not my Harley Quinn.
Fair enough. Now, Paul, any more thoughts on James Gunn leaving the MCU and going to DC?
I've never been a big fan of DC's live action stuff. So
because it mostly sucks.
Yeah, but even the stuff that people have liked, I've not been as big a fan of.
That's true.
My only concern with that stuff is that I love the Harley Quinn cartoon, and
that's an excellent cartoon.
Yeah, I don't want him to mess that up. I don't mind. Now, here's the thing: we've had 3 seasons; they're working on a 4th. I don't mind if they if they said we're going to wrap it up after season 4 or season 5, and then do something that plays into this universe or something. I wouldn't mind that because that would be a nice bunch of episodes there.
I don't think he would. I don't think he'd fuck with it. I don't think he'd fuck with Harley Quinn. I think he probably adores Harley Quinn.
I think he was actually on an episode. So he was in like an episode of Harley Quinn. I think he played like himself. if I'm remembering correctly.
it would seem right within his wheelhouse.
He
I
was
think
directing,
he would actually
directing like a movie, and I think she killed him.
But I mean, wouldn't it be great if actually he gave more freedom to Warner Brothers animation department to produce more stuff like Harley Quinn?
Yeah.
So we could get a really dark Knight.
Well,
he
said they have said that animation is a part of this.
Good.
Is a part of that deal.
I hope there's more Ron Funches. I love that guy.
Oh God, yeah.
He is King Shark. For those of you that don't keep up with voice actors.
Oh my God, I love that.
He was King. It wasn't Stallone King Shark in the
movie. Stallone was King Shark in the movie. Ron Funches plays a very different.
The Harley Quinn cartoon is quite bold. I can never see Disney doing anything like that. The fact that we got an F-bomb in Guardians of the Galaxy,
that surprised me.
And we got a couple of shits as well.
Yeah, there was a couple of shits and an asshole, I think.
Now, Mark has, I really want a Justice League dark film, but I know recasting Matt Ryan will depress me because he's perfect. Yes, he is a fantastic Constantine, but it seems that time of his life.
I do not want to see Keanu in Constantine too.
I do.
That's
one of the few live-action DC movies I've ever liked.
I just don't want to see Keanu. Look, I love the guy, but his Constantine...
Actually, in comparison to Matt Ryan.
I watched it before I was aware of more of Constantine as a DC character and Matt Ryan in the series. It's got to be played by an English actor. It's got to have that accent. Matt Ryan was absolutely perfect in it in the TV series and in the animated series. They swapped him out. They kind of gender swapped him in the Neil Gaiman Sandman series on Netflix. But you got to have an English Constantine. John Constantine cannot be an American. Sorry, it's not right. It's like having Spider-Man with a Scottish accent.
A short British Spider-Man.
Fucking work. I'm just saying it just doesn't fucking work. The character, I mean, that's changing a character to a degree that's really quite upsetting. I mean, I don't have a problem when they colorblind the casting and they rebooted the Fantastic Four with a Black Johnny Storm.
Right.
I thought it worked well because they got a fucking brilliant actor to do it, and it worked for me. I don't give a shit about the Little Mermaid being an actress of color. Great, she seems to be able to carry off the character. Boom, good luck to her. I'm not going to go see the movie. It's not my cup of tea, but there are certain things that they're inherent to the character, such as his quintessential Englishness, not even Britishness. It's quintessential Scouseness.
Yeah. He's got to be a Scouser. He's got to drink. He's got to smoke.
Yeah.
He's
James Bond
or Marcus. You could have played him like 20 years ago.
I can't do the Liverpool accent that one. So.
What about Mark's point of Elton John playing Constantine?
Taron Egerton. Look, Taron Egerton's a great actor.
I don't see him as a blonde though.
He was. I mean, he's great in the Kingsman series. I think he was great in the Kingsman series. He's obviously great in the Elton John biopic. I think he's a fabulous actor. He can carry off the accent. He is. Right. I think he's actually from North Wales. Oh. So he's definitely from Wales. So I know he can carry off the accent. He would be great. And like I said, I love Keanu, but I don't want to see his Constantine anymore because I've had that taste of a better Constantine, a more accurate Constantine, and I just can't go back to his anymore. I can't watch his movie anymore.
Right. I didn't like his movie, and I love Matt Ryan as Constantine, not as a male person. Mark says he thinks Elton John was born in Birkenhead, near Liverpool. Well, let's do some real-time fact checking on that.
I think Taron Egerton is up for James
Mark
Bond.
Is correct. Wow, I did not know he was 5'9".
He is.
He is?
Yeah, there's a lot of rumors about him being Wolverine at one point.
Oh, that'd be kind of cool. Mark, you are correct about Birkenhead. If I'm saying that
United
correctly.
Kingdom, there you go.
Uh-huh. Oh,
and he is. I mean, you look at he's a Welsh actor, so I'm guessing he was born in Birkenhead and then moved to. Birkenhead. Boom. Edgerton considers himself to be Welsh through and through and is fluent in both Welsh and English.
uh-huh.
His first name is Thunder in Welsh. So there you go.
Cool. I did not make a ticker for this because I forgot. But what did you guys think of the post-credit scenes? Or we got a mid-credit and a post-credit. One was Star-Lord and his grandfather.
I thought they both worked. I thought they didn't have any, like I said, multiversal bollocks. They didn't have any Kang. They teased a future Guardians that could look quite interesting if it comes off. If it doesn't, if we see them in Secret Wars, great. And then that's the other one with the grandpa. I mean, again, that could tease into Secret Wars. The Star-Lord will return.
Yes.
It was fine. It was I didn't have any issue with them. They didn't feel like they were just wedged in there to promote another fucking movie or TV series.
And you, Paul?
It worked for me.
Okay. I think this is what I have thoughts about what they mean. I think that Star-Lord will come back probably in the Avengers. And there will be the inevitable scene where someone will say, we need help from outer space. And he'll be like, I think I know a guy. But I could also have seen that being the tease of a Star-Lord in Suburbia TV show. Like not like a long one, like maybe like a 6-episode thing about like him trying to come to grips with the idea of, he basically grew up in a spaceship and as a pirate, and now he's got to live with grandpa.
Right.
With the other one of the Guardians as they are now, I think there's 3 different things it could possibly mean. One is they were just showing us what the new Guardians look like. The second is they're going to turn up in the Avengers movie. And they're going to come back. Or third, and this is, I think, the least likely, but the one I would most like to see, is 20 years from now, they get the original gang back together somehow.
The original meaning like Drax, Gamora.
Gamora, Nebula, Peter,
right,
everybody else. And that they sort of say, well, we've been doing this for the last 20 years. You've been living with your grandpa, and, Nebula, you've been off having a baby, or what I will, whatever it is,
Assuming Thanos didn't replace her.
That's a good point. He probably, knowing him, he probably did.
It's funny, and this is just me being a nerd, but when you say the original Guardians, I think of Martinex, of Yondu. In the comics, those were the original Guardians of the Galaxy, and they were rewritten in the movies as Ravagers.
Right. Yeah, no, I could see them thinking in like 20 years we're gonna bring everybody back, because by that point, like, it'd be kind of fun to bring like they did with like Princess Leia and Luke and Han Solo and Star Wars and stuff. I don't know.
That's an interesting thought, but I mean, that's so. 20 years is so far. I mean, hopefully I'm alive. I mean, you don't know.
The other thing that struck me about the rocket scene was, given how so much of that movie was about him and his animal friends and not wanting to hurt animals, and then it's like, okay, now we have to now we're going to go kill these bunch of stampeding animals. And I was like, wait a minute.
It only applies to cute animals.
Yeah, it was just weird. Like I kind of, I don't know. I sort of expected them to at least have a line in there where they were like, we got to herd these guys, not kill them before they step on the people. But like,
right. But I can see it. I mean, I agree with you literally, but there's also people like I was eating with a friend like a few years ago, and she was telling me I love animals so much. I'm like, you're eating a fucking hamburger.
Right.
I don't know how much you love them.
Yeah, that's that. Yeah, that's a that's a hypocrisy that I'm guilty of too. So
Well, I mean, I think what she meant to say is that she loves pets,
yeah,
not necessarily animals.
right.
And factoid here, you should hate koalas because they look all cute, but when they're not all high in eucalyptus, they're actually pretty ordinary animals.
I've heard that,
So
and I heard they smell bad too.
I always wanted to write a book, Koalas Are Assholes by Raymond Padilla.
And apparently they can get chlamydia,
Yes.
which
Yes.
I learned from John Oliver's show.
Yes, this is true. I actually there's actually a story in the San Francisco Zoo. There was actually a chlamydia outbreak among the penguins there.
Really?
And a friend of a guy we know that was a journalist that wore motorcycle boots.
Oh dear God!
Actually worked in the penguin exhibit.
Oh no!
Yeah,
I'm like, he fucked the penguin, didn't he? Like that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
I thought that all had. I'll be honest. I don't know too much about bear chlamydia, Mark. So I cannot help you out there. So let us get out of here on this. Was it the mid credit or post credit? It said Star-Lord will return. What do you want to see Star-Lord do? You already touched upon this a little bit. What do you want to see Star-Lord do in the MCU, Paul?
Well, like I said, I think they could do a TV series of him and his grandpa. Him coming to grips with, living in suburbia after being a space pirate for so long. I think if they were going to do that, like it might have had much more chance of that happening if James Gunn wasn't doing the DC stuff.
Yeah,
I expect that he will turn up in the Avengers somehow. That they will somehow get him back, or like somebody, like I said, somebody will say, we need help from outer space, and they'll go, well, let's call Peter. He knows, people from outer space, or they will run into Peter and they'll say, we need someone from space, and he will say, I know a guy, and they'll get on the horn with Rocket, and that of course would bring back Adam to the movie, because we know that he apparently plays some kind of role in that. Otherwise, I don't know. I mean, like I said, I could see them bringing the Guardians. I see them bringing the Guardians back, certainly in the Avengers. Marcus, you weren't here for this, but I said I could see them.
I had my earphones on.
Okay,
I did listen. I just muted my mic.
Yeah, the Guardians movie is going to make a shit ton of money, and Disney isn't going to want to let that go. People love, like we've been talking about, people love these characters, and they're going to want to see them,
but they won't see them recast. They can't.
No, they won't see them. They won't see them recast, but they will, I think, try to bring them back at some point.
I think the Guardians is something that's, because we had less familiarity with the Guardians kicking off. I think they are, if you keep Rocket and you keep Groot for a couple of movies, which is obviously easy enough to do given the actors and what they have to do.
Yeah. Right.
You could see a new Guardians movie with the Guardians who are there at the end of that this movie. And I wouldn't have a problem with that. I think those Guardians could actually continue to be, their adventures would be good, and I'll be very interested to see how that would pan out. But without James Gunn, I don't know if it would have the same soul. The other thing I will say is that Star-Lord will return in Super Mario Brothers 2, the animated movie, because at the end of the day, it's Chris Pratt who has all the range of a half an inch ruler, because he plays himself in every fucking movie.
But it works.
Look,
I mean, $1 billion at the box office multiple times.
Yeah, and I don't think that was necessarily down to him. I mean, he is an interchangeable part. Yeah, I mean, I don't see Pratt coming back for anything other than like I said, perhaps Battleworld pulls up the Ohio or where the fuck he comes from. Star-Lord comes from.
I see him being used like that. I agree with Marcus. Like, it might as well have said, instead of Star-Lord will return, it might as well have said Star-Lord is done as a lead character. So
yeah, I'd actually prefer to see the Guardians return with a director as capable and as edgy, perhaps, as James Gunn, who is outside perhaps the types they normally hire. Edgar Wright obviously came up earlier. I don't think he'll come back though. But I can't see the Guardians moving forward successfully with another director because, I mean, it's Gunn's DNA.
Well, supposedly supposedly the plot of Guardians 3 was originally going to be the plot of a Rocket and Groot movie.
Yes, I have read that too.
Maybe they do that.
It's quite possible.
I mean,
it just boils down to, will it be fun without James Gunn?
It could be.
Love the rhyme. The world missed a great Welsh rapper here.
Aye, MC Beer on the wheels of coal.
Nice. Now, I will close things out on this, and that I totally agree with Marcus. This is the first MCU film in a long time that I actually want to see again in theaters, and I probably will. Probably go on those discount Tuesday nights and see it again. For me, it was that enjoyable. Even with the problems I had with it, I had such a good time with it. Agree? Disagree?
Yeah, I mean, if I wasn't so anti-theater, and it sucks that I'm just.
Do you remember the last movie you saw? You had an obnoxious incident in the theater. I had a mother to my left, and she let her child play on a mobile phone. He was playing a game for more than half the movie, very loudly. And I'm like, what the fuck? It really, really annoyed me. Like,
yeah, those people should actually be spayed and neutered publicly without anesthetic.
Ouch.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. Anyway, yes. So let's wrap this up.
Yes, guys, thank you for watching our video. Please like, subscribe. Our social media is all up there. Go to Paul's website, paulsemel.com.
And Man United lost.
Hey, what a great day this is. I got to do a stream with two of my favorite people, and Man U lost. And Mark is here too. This is great. And we will see you next time.
Sorry, I thought you said Marcus is here too. I thought you were talking about your favorite people being Paul and Mark.
No, I meant
this
Mark.
This Mark.
Yes. So, guys, thank you for watching the BeeRPad. We will see you next time.